Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. This is a new kind of experimental version of Sleep With Me we've never done before. So welcome. These are just bedtime stories from our podcast, Sleep With Me. And to make them feel fresh, these ones are from a couple years ago. So if you're a regular listener, you might get a refresh. And if you're new, these are just bedtime stories from a show called Sleep With Me. They're strange, they're meandering, they're a little bit different. And all this is made possible by listeners like you, regular listeners like you. And so I just want to let you know that's how we're able to put the show out. And so if you are a fan of Sleep With Me, you listen to it on a regular basis, please consider supporting the show. You get ad-free episodes, you get ad-free story-only episodes, tons of other cool stuff at Sleep With Me Plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But if you're in a position and you have some money every month, or you say, hey, maybe I don't watch that streaming service, I'd rather give it to a podcast, think about your favorite podcast. It doesn't have to be Sleep With Me, and support that podcast. If it is Sleep With Me, I consider supporting the show would be great. But if it isn't, or there's a podcast you listen to way more, brings you a lot of value during the day, please support that podcast. Podcasting's going through a different time right now, and your favorite podcast, the one you get the most out of, could use your support the most. So consider supporting it however they request support. Just check it out, like listen to the show or check out their website, or consider supporting Sleep With Me. If Sleep With Me, you say, oh no, Sleep With Me is the one I listen to the most, sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster. I really believe you're important and that you deserve a good night's sleep. I'm really glad you're here. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. And here's a few of the ways we keep the show coming out twice a week and free for everybody. So if you're a regular listener, if you could listen, it's a huge help. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. This is a quick message here. If you get a lot out of Sleep With Me, if you're a regular listener, you like these new things we're trying out, like the story-only version of the show. If you're new, don't worry about any of this. But if you're a regular listener of Sleep With Me, or you're a regular listener of any podcast, if you have a favorite podcast and it's not Sleep With Me, that's totally cool. If you have podcasts you listen to way more or you get way more value out of, I totally understand that. Consider supporting that podcast. Podcasting as an industry is kind of going through a weird phase right now. Direct support from listeners is going to be, it seems like it's going to be the future of most shows. And so consider supporting the podcast you really love. And you could do that. You could find out, you could listen to the show and see how they ask to be supported, or reach out to them and say, hey, how can I support you? Or if you can't afford, a few dollars a month, you say, hey, how else can I support you? But if Sleep With Me is the one, Sleep With Me Plus is the best way to support Sleep With Me. Sign up for Sleep With Me Plus. Not only you get an unbelievably sweet, different ways to listen to the show, but it's a huge help for us to be able to do stuff like this. But yeah, think about what your favorite podcast is, and then go ahead and go to their website, or if you already know how they like to be supported, support that show. Thanks and good night. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's things you're thinking about, thoughts. It could be feelings that you're experiencing or that are bubbling up. It could be physical sensations. Whatever's keeping you awake, it could be changes, time, temperature, whatever it is. I'd like to take your mind off. I'd like to distract you. I've got a safe place here. I got a space set aside for you. Plenty of room. And it's cozy, but there's, room to lounge, to stretch out. Exactly. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use the lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic. If you're new, a couple of things. This podcast is not... it's outside of the norm. If there is any norms where you say, okay, like podcasting's a pretty open space. You can kind of do everything. And that's what's great about this space. But this, even for a podcast, a little bit different. So I would say, kind of try to you don't need to have an open mind. There's nothing that gets on my nerves more than when somebody tells me to have an open mind. I think it's great if you check the show as a healthy skepticism, but also with a quizzical, maybe you have a quizzical look on your face. You could be skeptical and quizzical at the same time, because figuring out this podcast is where it can trip people up, or waiting for it to start making sense, or even to get started. We're already started here. Welcome, come on in. So it's not going to, I think that's kind of, I'm glad you're here if you're new. I guess that's what I'm shooting for, is to put you in a quizzical mood. I think that maybe that'll be, if I had if I was a jazz singer, like the Silvertone is, I think that would be like an album I would put out, a quizzical mood. And I don't know if I'd have, it would probably be good to have someone like Bublé come in and do a track, but I don't know if I'd want Bublé stealing my thunder as far as like singing a quizzical mood. Of course, I can't sing, so that's, but if you're new, here's a couple other things if you're new. So the podcast doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It takes a few tries. It does not work for everybody, but I hope it works for you. So see how it goes. Structurally, if you're new, here's what to expect. There's a business at the beginning, and that's how we keep the show going and free, and it's high quality. Believe it or not, there's a lot of work that goes into the show, and I say that with a smile because the goal is to put a lot of work in, so it seems like there's no work. Yeah, but that's not super important, but that's how we keep the show going, as a business at the beginning. Then there's an intro. And if you're new, it might throw you off because the intros are around 12 minutes of me, 12 minutes of me explaining what the intro is and then kind of trying to explain what the podcast is. And like a few percentage of people skip ahead to just go to the story. Tonight will be our ongoing episodically modular series. Big Farm in the Sky, PI, the Phantom Minnow. What was my point? So you could skip ahead to like 18 or 20 minutes if you're just looking for the story, or our patrons get story-only episodes. Like most people, just a small percentage of people, a lot of people fall asleep during this intro or get ready for bed or start their wind down. And so that's kind of the intro. Is like the show's slow to start because I want to ease you into bedtime. Also, I never have figured out how to efficiently make a podcast, explain things, or I'm still trying to figure out exactly how this whole sleep podcast thing works. So those are some other reasons why I don't effectively get to the point of explaining what the show is. So let's see. So that's trying to think what else. Structurally. So there'll be the intro's 12 minutes or so, sometimes 14, sometimes 16. Then there's a business just between the intro and the story. Then there's a bedtime story. Then there's some thank yous at the end. So it's the structure of the show. Also, you don't need to listen to me. No pressure at all. I'm here to help you fall asleep. So I'm here to keep you company and to take your mind off stuff while you drift off. So you could do so at your leisure, but you could turn me down to a mumble. As a review I recently read said, kind of like, you could put me like just far enough away that it sounds like some TV's on in another room. Or you could listen. I'll be here to keep you company, but in a very circuitous and meandering way. But you don't need to listen or really remember or feel like have any FOMO, because you could just listen tomorrow or at another time, or just listen to, just sleep and then move on to the next episode. So there's no pressure. Listen, here's the other thing. No pressure to fall asleep. I make this show because I truly believe you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a life where you can flourish and be treated with dignity and respect, even in your internal relationship with yourself. I don't know, I think my tongue's having a little, creating a little wrinkle in my own internal relationship. What are you not? My tongue's refusing to touch the upper palate of my mouth for some reason, but, no pressure. Oh, no pressure to listen. Oh, no pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here for about an hour. And the reason the shows are an hour is twofold. One, it gives you plenty of time to fall asleep, so there's no pressure. And you could queue up as many episodes as you need. And you can just drift off as I talk about stuff. And the other side of it is, though, if you can't sleep, if you're up and you get something on your mind, or you just don't know why you can't sleep, or you do know why, I'm here. I'm here to keep you company throughout the night if you need it. That's one of the reasons I work so hard on this podcast and make the episodes complete, is for those of you that can't sleep. I'm here. I'm here to be a voice, to be your boar friend, to be your boar bae, your boar bud, your boar sib, your boar cuz, your boar bestie. And in some paradoxical way, I'm here to be your boar bestie, whether you're awake or asleep, whether you need me talking to you, or whether you need me talking near you, and you're not, it's just a chatter, or you just need me to set it up and you lay it down. You know what I'm saying? So I'm here to help. That's why I make this podcast, is because I've been there, tossing. I know what it feels like, and I believe, that while this doesn't fix everything, this podcast doesn't work for everybody, that a little friendship, a little companionship, a little bit of goofing around, maybe it can help. And I mean, again, you're talking about somebody who makes a sleep podcast, who after I'm done recording, I'm going to have to sit down with my tongue in my upper palate and talk it out. And I say, we're living a pun now, because what's going on with you two? And then I would have to also sit with the tongue and say, well, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the upper palates. And did you just hear that? I tried to prevent myself from sighing at my own. It's okay. Well, you two are meant to work together. You out of all my body, you do live in the same facility. Okay. My mouth just said, we're not a facility. Again, it was just a figurative term, but you're part of a team there, and I'd like it if you two, you don't have to get along, but I think you two, maybe it's just a matter of, I think, I think maybe you just both need a nap when I'm done recording this, obviously, and I'll snuggle you. I don't think, to be honest, maybe it is my fault. I have used, I have given you, I've brushed you both, and I've looked at you both in the mirror, but now lately, you're right, I haven't looked at you two, all of you in the mirror. I haven't said, for the pleasure of doing it, for the pleasure of seeing both of you in all of your glory. And I haven't taken the time to wonder, are those taste buds visual? Is that what I'm looking at, taste buds? And then to imagine, your upper palate or whatever, I don't even know what you to play imagination games with you, pretend we're exploring, maybe we're in a whale. I know, I love role play of famous characters trapped in whales. That's one of my number one things. So I guess I'm just apologizing. Also, if anybody knows what the difference between the roof of your mouth is and your upper palate, just parts of the wonderful things in that great facility I call my mouth. The great team, one of the most famous teams known to me at the mouth. Of course, you're part of the greater head community. Oh, boy. And yes, you are unappreciated. Let me validate that because it's true. I only need to validate it because it's true, not because I'm into validating things so that we could move on with the podcast intro. Oh, no. You two, And all of you have not been appreciated. Holy moly. And just in a loving way. You're right. To be noticed, to be seen, to say, hey there, uvula or whatever, whatever you got, the things I can't spell within my mouth. Sure, I should open my mouth and ponder if there is a lower palate. I assume there is, if there's an upper one. Yes, I should roll you up and look on, oh boy, those are things I'm going to be doing later. But maybe, hopefully soon, you and my listeners will be, however, did you know that the world, I don't know if it's as everybody holds their mouth in a unique way while they sleep, but, hopefully this will be slack-jawed in a good way. Hopefully we'll be slack-jawed later. Maybe drooling. Be great. That would really be like you would be working as a team, just chilling out. So all credit, by the way, if you listen to this podcast, two parts of my mouth and the greater head community that just haven't gotten the attention they deserve. Really essential parts, the upper palates. Possibly, I assume, if it's what I think it is, it's an essential part of the show. And one of the hardest working muscles and, are you an organ or what? How about we get the tongue and Pluto on the same page and say the tongue is an organ? No, you don't need that much attention. Well, you're the hardest working thing that enables me to communicate in lulling, soothing tones. Okay, I don't have time. Vocal cords, I'm sorry. I can only heal so many. I'll give you, believe me, I'm gonna gargle, holy gargling. The amount of gargling I'm gonna do for all of you. Oh, do you all love gargling? Okay, well, there's something we can all agree on. Okay, just the exact right amount of salinity, though, of course. Of course. So, of course, we'll get the perfect temperature that all of you are happy with. I got to get back to the podcast listeners, though. Well, that took an interesting turn. If you're new, that's what kind of happens every intro in a different way. Here's a little... something I like to say is like, it might not have made any sense, but you could take your mind off whatever was keeping you awake. That's kind of how the whole podcast works. So if you're new, give it a few tries. I really want to help. I'm really glad you're here. And I work very hard because I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's the thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, things, whatever's keeping you awake. It could be stuff you're thinking about, right? Like I said, those are thoughts. It could be, something physical you're feeling, or a combination of the two, or it could be all three. It could be emotion, like emotional, like feelings. I guess there's physical sensations, there's feelings, there's thoughts, and it's a lot of times they're all interrelated. But whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to keep you company and take your mind off of that. What I'm going to do is send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, the smoothing and the padding and the rubbing down of a safe place and padding it. I'm going to say, back that truck up. We need some more padding in here. In fact, I've been going, this is imaginary, but I've been going on a coast-to-coast, pole-to-pole, I've been to the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, and oh boy, circling the equator, and all points in between, in search of more padding. I say, tell me about the foam you have there. Oh boy. They say, how much to buy, well, tell me about this, sponges. Maybe we'll come back to this because it feels rich. If you're new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is a podcast going to take your mind off of stuff while you fall asleep, to keep you company. It's a bit inane, I believe, and you might even add an S in there. Some people do when they listen. But if you're new, here's a couple things. Like, give the show a few tries. And that's no pressure from my end. You can give it one try if you don't think it works, or you could give it a few. I want to help you fall asleep, but this doesn't work for everybody. But most people, that does work for hundreds of thousands of regular listeners, almost to a T, so 90%. So like they say, it took two or three tries to get used to it. And then I said, oh, okay, it's a bit of nonsense. So when you're first listening, your instinct might be to try to figure it out or to pay attention. And you can, but I tend to jump around and go on tangents and wonder, about bulk foam and sponges and things like that. Okay, well, open cell and closed cell, that'll be good. And so what we'll do, so if you're new, yeah, give it a few tries, but don't try, kind of look at the show like you'd look at a water flowing by slowly, or listening to the sounds of birds or a fountain. You say, hey, it's not that bad. I don't know what the birds are saying. That's what most listeners say at breakfast. They say, hey, sweetums. Yeah, snookums. What was you? So that the Scoots, your pod buddy, was rambling last night. Was he talking about? Was he calling dragonflies fly buddies or something? Oh no, honey. I think he was talking about that '80s show Bosom Buddies. But I don't know. I fell right asleep, kind of, with something close to a smile on my face, while you were melodiously snoring next to me, sweetums. Oh, thanks, Snookums. Do you want, I hope you have a great day and we'll go out there in the world and flourish. Create the community we want to be or see. Okay, Snookums. Oh, by the way, checkout's at 11 a.m. Oh, thanks for my breakfast. Here's your tip. Anyway, sorry, but that was even a tangent within a tangent. Oh, but if you're new, okay. Oh, I think I kind of explained that the show doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Structurally, what to expect. We start off, you probably heard it, with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep the podcast free and of the highest quality for the podcast it is, and we keep it going. So thank you when you're handed to the fridge tomorrow. Regular listeners will remember that. If you're new, not important. Then we have an intro, which we're probably about 5 minutes into. Intros are around 12 minutes of me explaining what the podcast is. It's 700 plus times. Haven't settled on a certain way that works. You say, well, it's a meandering show within a show, a bit like a monologue, heavy on log, ideally to make you sawing logs. And yeah, it's not very efficient, but it actually, in a weird way, it is efficient because some people use it as they wind down, get ready for bed, get into bed, get their pets or get their pillows settled and their, stuffed animal buddies, plush, as some people call it. Some people are getting, maybe brush your hair, balming, oiling, moisturizing, spritzing, poofing, whatever you're doing as they wind down. That's like a lot of listeners. A few listeners skip the intro. Some people fall asleep during the intro. And actually, the more and more people I hear from, they say, well, I listen to the intro at bedtime and during the day when I need a little break. I need a little relief. I say, Scoots, just like Calgon, take me away. So there's no right or wrong way to listen to the show. I mean, it's a podcast. It comes out twice, Sundays and Wednesdays. And that's the structure. Oh, no, that's part of the structure. That's the beginning. Then we'll be covering Doctor Who. In a way, I'll be doing a recap, but it'll be kind of like, heavy on the nightcap if I can keep using these sleepy puns tonight. And I'll say, what kind of screwdrivers would Dr. Hugh, did Dr. Who ever have a friend, Dr. Hugh? H-U-E or H-U-G-H. What does Hugh think of Doctor Who? Hugh, said the boo. That was a famous, there was actually a Dr. Seuss, doctor who, it was almost created in my mind. It was never actually like a crossover series, but the Doctor and the Doctor, I called it. But then what happened was, as a prop, when I was going to imaginarily do this and pitch BBC, I got one of those rubber mallets or whatever, and then I just kept saying, Doctor Who, check our patients' knee reactions, and then I'd imagine the doctor, like one doctor doing the little rubber hammer to see if my knee would jump, which it did. And then the other doctor kind of doing the sonic screwdriver. So that would be about our coverage of Doctor Who. You'll recognize it. Maybe it'll reawaken your love of the Doctor and Rose and Mickey. Or maybe you'll say, well, I'd have to check that out. I haven't checked it out yet. Sounds pretty dreamlike. And I would say, oh boy, is this Dr. Dream, is Rose's dream? Look at this. I'm perfectly comfortable saying this. Rose is dreamy. Mickey's dreamy. Doctor's dreamy. And the plot lines are usually pretty dreamy. No steamy, though. You say, well, I'm not into steam, Scoots. I prefer my steam, in my, wherever, my shower. And it's, well, they call it dancing on Doctor Who, or kissing. So don't worry. You could check it. I'm sure there's tons of good fanfic out there. So you could just, check that out after the Doctor After Dark. The Doctor and the Doctor After Dark. I didn't even write that. The Doctor Who, or the Dr. Seuss fan in my brain said, no, Scoots, no. Don't even say it again. The Doctor and the Doctor After Dark. And they said they were just looking at the stars. That was it. And saying, look at the hue of those stars. Who? Hugh? No, who? Hugh. Okay, so that's the structure of the show. So that might give you a good idea that it took me about 5 minutes just to explain the structure of the show. And then we end with some thank yous. Between the intro and the story, TV recap is some business, too. And that's it structurally. As far as listening, you don't need to listen. This is one of the few podcasts you can listen. You can listen close if you can't sleep. Believe me, I'm going to be here to keep you company. That's one of my main goals, is for those sliver of people that are stuck or you wake up lonely. I'm here to keep talking. I'm here to keep you company. But you also don't have, that also creates this compact where I'll be here so you don't need to listen to me. And maybe that'll help you rest. You say, well, Scoots is going to be here talking whether I'm listening or not. It's interesting. I say, yeah, you got it. This is what I do. So there's no pressure to listen. There's no pressure to fall asleep. That's also why I'm here about an hour. And there's 299 other shows waiting to go in the feed. Is you fall asleep at your leisure. It might be during the intro. You might need a couple episodes. Maybe, maybe you're out of town or something, on the road. You got some tests tomorrow. I'm here. Okay? I'm here to help. I've been there. Believe me. And it's my honor to help. And like I said, as I've, started to travel the world within my mind, I was researching, and I said, well, what if can we get this a safe place that I'm trying to create? Well, more padding. And padding, like once I get padding, then it involves more padding, patting, because they say, well, you can't have padding without saying, okay, let me pat it down. Let me smooth it and pat it too. And rub it down and say safe place, just like BBD would. Or BBDV, just like that, or Motown Philly. Anyway. So, yeah, I said, okay, what about sponges? And I said, well, okay, how do you get these sponges? Have these sponges lived a full life? Because I know they're not. And they say, of course they have, Scoots. And I say, hey, Sponge Baron, are your fingers crossed? Because I could just go, I don't need, And then I said, then I went totally off topic. I dove in the water. I tried to talk to the sponges and sing them a song. And then I said, okay, maybe go back to the phone. So then I traveled, down around one of those tropics. And then I just lied in the sand for a while and enjoyed that and put my feet in the water. And he said, this is pretty good for this situation, but not helping padding in a safe place because no sand. Can't have sand in a safe place. Well, unless we could separately create that for you in an individualized safe place, not a generalized one. And then I said, okay, let's go back. Should we get the foam like that's all chopped up? Should we have some of that? What about a closed cell versus open cell? Gray cell, green. I said, that goes in and out of my head, and I sing that. And then I say, okay. I said, what is the natural color foam? And then I thought about foam parties, which were popular maybe, I don't know, at dance clubs at some point in history. I never went to one. And then I thought about scented foam. And I said, oh, you know what foam works best for padding and smoothing and rubbing it down? Just imagine it, the most comfortable foam you can imagine. Just right. As our friend Goldilocks once said, this one is just right. Scoots has smoothed it, he's patted it, he's rubbed it down. He's either cooled it or warmed it. And he's welcomed me in. He says, hey, you came skeptical. Maybe you'll leave this time skeptical. Give it a few tries to see if it works for you. Try a couple bowls of oatmeal or whatever it was, porridge. Try a couple, try to leave it as you left it and, put them in the sink. At GL or whatever. But other than that, come check it out. See if it works. I'd like to help. And that's it. I'm really appreciative of your time. I'm glad you're here. I work very hard and I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. Thank you so much for coming by. And here's a few ways we keep the show going. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. Whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, or routine, you might have shifts in the weather, work schedule, whatever it is. I'm here. I'm taking this safe place. I'm smoothing it. I'm patting it. I'm rubbing it down. I'm ruffling it, fluffing it, and pulling it taut. Taut. It's funny. Like, how do you say what a teacher did today on Long Island? Taught, you say. What did you do all day? Taught. Sorry, that was it just popped in my head when I was thinking, is taught and taught spelled the same way? And then I could hear some of my relatives from like Ronkonkoma saying, shout out from them. So shout out to Ronkonkoma. So where was I? Where was I? I have a safe place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing tones, creaky dulcets, pointless meanders. Stuff will come up, and then I'll get distracted. Even words like Ronkonkoma, that's not the most sleepy word, but it's not a bad word. It has a nice flowing of syllables, Ronkonkoma. And I may not even be saying it right. But what I'm going to do is I'm here to keep you company. I'm here to take your mind off of stuff, to distract you from whatever it is that might be keeping you up, to give you a friendly bit of banter to listen to. Now, if you're new, a few things. Structurally, show starts off with a few minutes of business, and that's how we keep the show free for hundreds of thousands of people. Then we have an intro. The intros are kind of a show within a show. It's actually part of the podcast. Sometimes new listeners either they think it's something that's supposed to make sense, like a normal intro, or that it's an advertisement or something. No, it's just a friend, just your boyfriend trying to explain what the podcast is. Maybe talk about a couple of things that were on my mind, and you kind of go off topic a little bit. where I'm supposed to be introducing what it is. So it's a lot of listeners use it as part of their wind down, where they're getting ready for bed, getting into bed, easing into the experience. For me, I literally have to schedule an hour wind down. And now that's not always enough. So this is like a 12 to 14 minute little wind down. Some people use it. Some people fall asleep during it. Like 2 or 3% of people skip it. A lot of people, more and more people listen to it during the day, either the intro or the podcast itself, to kind of unwind. So whatever it is, the podcast, oh, that's the intro. So that's the intro. Then there's some business, and then there's the story. Tonight it'll be kind of a guided meditation mixed with a little bit of nostalgia. So it's just structurally what to expect. As far as rules or stuff. Here's the thing. Here's a couple of things. I'm not going to make much sense. So kind of easily consume the podcast. I would compare it to chewing oatmeal. And you might say, oatmeal can't be chewed. And I'd say, well, it can be. It's just not you could have chewy oatmeal. That's a different thing. But I'm saying, I think you know what I mean. And if you're a regular listener, you say, oh, yeah, listen to Sleep With Me is like chewing oatmeal. That was right. That was Sleep With Me's catchphrase for 2019, maybe. It's like chewing oatmeal. And then, most people see it. And then it's like feeling dumbfounded because you say, even though I don't know what you're talking about, I know exactly what you're talking about. So that's how much listening you need to do and how much sense making this show is. I'd say it's a sensible nonsense, like chewable. And again, I'm not saying chewy oatmeal. Chewy oatmeal is a different story. You'd say, what do you want me to do with this? Chew it, or like mix more milk and then heat it back up, or how come no one makes? This is just a question that just popped in my head, but so you have snowballs, right? And you have oatmeal, two things you might think are unrelated, and oatmeal cookies. And then you have oatmeals. Oh, I guess there's oat cakes. I've seen oat cakes before. But I've never seen anyone throw an oatmeal ball. Not that it's a good idea, kids. Don't do it. I mean, don't throw it at another person or anything considered private property. And also ask the internet if birds can eat oatmeal, but you maybe throw it at a tree or somewhere where a forest friend could eat it. Because I was just thinking, if the times I've been in a place that serves like large amounts of oatmeal to large amounts of people, it can get into that chewy form factor, which is just like ballable material. I mean, obviously not if you're going to be shaking hands with business people later. But otherwise, I think you can picture it with me, and let's do it as a little exercise. If you need a little exercise, take that oatmeal, and it's just above room temperature, above body temperature, but not just 1 or 2 degrees above body temperature. Oh, it's nice in the hands. And it is that there's nothing leaking out of it. It's just so it's in a gelatinous state, but it never gets any credit for being gelatinous. Also, someone remind me in the future, that's another podcasty word, gelatinous. And we're forming it into a ball. It does want to be in a ball. It also is somewhat formless. It likes the position it's in between our palms. Our cup, we're cupping a meat. You say, what's in your hands? Here's something that the only time this was answered was when a teacher probably asked it to me. He said, what's in your hands? I'm cupping an oatmeal ball, an oat ball. And I said, the teacher said, I'm sorry, what are you doing? I'm cupping oatmeal. Well, it's not oatmeal anymore. It's an oat ball because it's more. Never mind. I'll just go talk to sister, the head man. Yes, I know. But here we are. We're cupping our oat ball. Because oatmeal ball, just like ronkonkoma has the right amount of syllables, something about oatmeal ball has the wrong amount of syllables. That'd be something you go to dressed in a gown made of oatmeal, and I would love to be your date to the oatmeal ball. Or if you live on an oats collective, or, you live in a culture with an oat-based economy, or heavily dependent on oats, you'd say, well, yeah, what do you think we have every year? We have, that's how we kick off the breakfast season, the oatmeal ball. Oh, well, I was picturing something more idyllic where children chase one another with balls of oats or of oatmeal or something that's made of oats that was once oatmeal. So basically cooked oats in water where most of the water's been absorbed. Some of it may have entered as water vapor into the air. And they chase one another around, throwing them, not at one another, unless we can determine that there's a way to do that where it just feels good. And it would probably be good for your skin. Actually, now, what am I thinking? If you put on some goggles, maybe this is a new thing. Maybe this could be at my spa, Scoots' Spa. I know I've talked about other spa ideas before, and I can't think of any right now, but this could be another thing. It could be really good. If I had I guess I'd need more of a spring, spa and natural springs. And you'd say, oh, yeah, you could head down, before you head down to the natural spring, we'll have oat ball fun, an oat ball toss, and, then make sure that you have it within the designated area. And then even maybe, I guess we'd have to check with the man, my other partners in this business to see if that's a good idea for people covered in oats to get into the hot spring. I would say holy exfoliation, when you get in there. And that would be nice. And then you get a loofah or something, you're rubbing the oats in and then you're rubbing them off. And also your body is now a bit like a runner's high. You've been throwing oat balls at one another. So you worked it up. Could be, could also be, we have rooms for two if you catch my drift. If you find throwing oats titillating, probably you're the one for me. I guess that's because there's someone for everyone. And we could go to the oat ball together. Maybe just an oat-themed weekend. And I guess I've lost my oats. So where was I? So I was saying you don't need to listen to this podcast. You don't need to make any sense of it. There's also no pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here for about an hour to keep you company. With a little journey into the past tonight. So, yeah, that's it. The reason I make this show is because I've been there. If it's your first few times listening, give the podcast a couple tries. It doesn't work for everybody. It's a little bit different, but give it a few tries and see if it does, because it's free, and it's here to help. And I really, truly believe you deserve a good night's sleep without the pressure of falling asleep. I think that's kind of what this podcast is about. And if it doesn't work for you, you can email me. I could give you some other options. But I really want to help. I work really hard on this show. I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. Thank you so much for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, changes in schedule, baffling thing. That's all. Like you always say, Scoots. What's a baffling? One of those baffling ones. Where I say I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, so I'm here to help. And what I'm going to do, it's been a few weeks since I said this. I'm going to welcome you into this safe place. I'm going to smooth it. I'm going to pat it, and I'm going to rub it down. Then I'm going to poof it. Then I'm going to stand back as after it's reached peak poofing. It settles, that's always the best. You poof it, you pat it, you mark it with a D for dear Scooter. Then I let it settle, just you and me. And while it settles, I'll be here also trying to, what's the word where I try to earn your trust when you do that in a professional setting. It's a word that's really hard for me as a dyslexic to spell. I don't know. I can't think of it. It means like it's like the professional side of camaraderie where you say, "Hey, how you doing? Let's build some small talk rapport." That's it. Thank you. But if you're new, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send my voice across the deep dark night. I'm gonna use the lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones. Also, if you're a regular listener, I'm gonna do the same thing. Pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. Metaphors that you'd say, are you sure that's a metaphor? Or is that a slip, like a Freudian slip? You know, I'm the first person. Here's a question, really. Are all Freudian slips metaphors? I never even thought of that till just now. And I can feel Dr. Freud somewhere nodding knowingly. They'd say, what? No, this isn't about that. Okay, so, but that is a question to get back to. But first, new listeners, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, a podcast that cheer while you fall asleep. I say it's a podcast to put you to sleep. Ideally, it will, but it'll also be here to keep you company as you fall asleep. Structurally, what to expect. There's a lot of things about the podcast that can throw you off. So I want to give you an idea what to expect. A lot of nonsense. A lot of creaky dulcet tones and and when I say nonsense, I also mean, it's nonsensical, like the fun kind of nonsense, like when you're walking around the kitchen, banging on a pot with a wooden spoon, the calm, lulling version of that, in a diaper, or as I like to call it, the weekend. And, I can't get my own image of myself out of there. Then I'll play with some Transformers and some Legos and, cars. I like to play with all my toys together. Then I'll go back to doing something else. But here, right now, I'm trying to, I was explaining what kind of nonsense to expect. I think there you go. But, this podcast is nonsensical and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you're new. So structurally, it starts off with business. That's how we keep the show going and free. I think we're in our, 6th year making the show, or maybe 2013. Yeah, something like that. So that's how we do that. Then there's an intro, which we're more than a few minutes into. The intro is a part of the show, and I'm not humble bragging here to say, it's a pretty beloved part of the show for regular listeners. For new listeners, it can throw you off. It's like a 13 or 14-minute attempted, and I mean that in bold, italices and underlined, and even strike through it and highlight it, because it's an attempt where I say, well, here's what the podcast kind of is and does, but it's hard for me to explain. Just like it's hard for, if you ever asked a kid walking around the kitchen, even if you're just in your pajamas, banging on a pot and wearing a pot as a cap, how come that's so fun? Or, how come you only do this once every 36 months? Well, there's some kids that do it every day. Some adults too. But you'd say, I don't know. It just feels good. Feels good and here, maybe that's a new therapy we could come up with. And it's a free therapy. You could practice anytime you want. Go around, probably when you're on your own, or if you're in a relationship or a family situation, do it as a companionship or a group activity. Let's bring that back. Banging pots. It's not for toddlers anymore. If I could run a national ad campaign, maybe that's what I'd say. Banging pots, musically, not banging them around like I told you I was wild about wild rice, like that kind of pot banging. Anyway, I think I lost myself there. So, structurally, so the intro is a long, drawn out, but friendly, somewhat fun beginning of the podcast. Here's some listeners skip it, maybe 2 or 3% of listeners. They skip ahead to the story, about 18 minutes in. A lot of listeners use it as part of their wind-down routine. where they're getting ready for bed, where they're getting settled in for bed, right? They've done the poofing, and now they're doing the settling portion. They're landing the old dream plane or taking off the dream plane and, settling into auto cloudy mode where you rest on a sleepy cloud. Or what was the other thing? Some listeners fall asleep during the intro. So that's the intro. Then there'll be a story. Tonight will be our episodically modular series, Big Farm in the Sky PI, Season 2. Though you could miss Season 1 and not miss anything. There's some business between the intro and the story portion. And then at the end of the show, there's some thank yous. That's structurally what to expect. The other things you need to know if you're new, you don't need to listen to me. You could listen to me at any level you wish. Or you could, we've gone through this before. I'm the kind of person totally comfortable with you just, you say, okay. Go ahead, Scooch. You were talking about landing your runway of dreams, huh? Oh, yeah. Like, you could do that if you want, or banging a pot, huh? That's a good thing to fall, like, that's the kind of thing I would fall asleep saying. Or if you go to tuck a kid in and you say, good night, sweetie poo. Even though they're already asleep, you tuck them in one last time. And they say, banging a pot. And maybe you could do that. Oh, wow, banging a pot, huh? Yeah, banging a pot. And there's a gummy bear there. And, an apron. And it's okay, great. That's terrific. So proud of you. It's a jelly spoon, not a jelly spoon. Oh, you took a spoon at, no, it's the gummy bear. His name's Frenchie. Okay, great. But actually, Scoots is in the middle of explaining the podcast to new people. Okay, so I'm back. I already forgot the other stuff I was going to talk about in the beginning. I think it had to do with like a hip-hop song from my childhood anyway. But so, where was I? So that's the structure. So, you don't need to listen to me. That was the thing. And there's no pressure to fall asleep. The reason the shows are just over an hour, most of them, is so you have plenty of room to fall asleep. You can queue up 299 other episodes after this if you need them. And I'll be like, because I want to, there's no pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here till the end. And to make this show just as much to put you to sleep as I do to keep you company and be a voice of companionship to those that aren't going to sleep, that can't fall asleep, whatever the situation is. So I'm here to help. I'm here to be your Bore Bay. And my favorite bay is Paul Bay, of course, of the Big Loop and the tapes, that you heard about in the Pacific Northwest. The Obsidian tapes, I think they've been referred to by me only. So, I'm here to be your Bore Bay, your Bore Cuz, your Bore Sib, your Bore Bestie, and help you fall asleep. I think that's it. I was talking about something, though, at the beginning of the show. I know I was talking about poofing and puffing. Then I thought, then banging pots and pans. I just said pots, so I totally skipped out on pans. So if you were going to do it as a family activity or like I guess you could do it as a romantic activity. Or, when we're really talking about romance, I mean, you could do it as pre or post romantic activity. You just have to, because it would be, if you got two adults or a teen, holy moly, and only one person's banging a pot around, usually it's some sort of, loving testing activity. But I think that could be a new thing. You say, well, it's time to everybody, wasn't that like that song was about everybody bang pots tonight? It was a song, I think it was Wang Chung, but then they changed it to bang pots tonight and have fun tonight. That was the main thing. Also wear an apron while you do it, maybe, or Halloween costume. Well, yeah, I think I thought I interviewed someone in the middle of that, too. Oh, it was a kid that kid that was asleep that I had put to sleep earlier within me. Let's just check in with them. Let me ask them. I don't know if you're still asleep. You heard of the Sleep With Me podcast? That's the one with the cricket rooter. Yeah, that's the one. It's a podcast. It's got a super long intro. Do you sleep during the intro? Do you skip it, or do you listen to it, or do you listen to it today for comfort? It's like construction paper, and the tissue paper is inside of it. Oh, yep. And so, what's your favorite thing about Sleep With Me podcast in general, or are you even a Sleep With Me podcast listener? It's a pencil sharpener, and is it a thing? Yeah. Oh, wait, what were you laughing about? The part where I said, "Are you asleep with me, listener?" Oh, because like you knew you were. It was Cardi B, and then it was Lynn in the balloons. Okay, great. That was great talking to you. I'm glad you're asleep, because it's a podcast actually put people to sleep, and they do it with a bedtime story. I don't know. Did you get a bedtime story? So you got to get back because you. Am I running this segment into the ground? You take a pillow, and you push, whoosh, whoosh, and sing, "Oh, it's nice, good night." And then you put your head and settles. Okay, terrific. Thanks for coming on. So it's just that's not. I don't know if that's ever happened before. I think I've talked to cats before, and I know there was one episode where I put myself to sleep, but that was some sort of. They say, if you have a super collider, get in touch with me, because I was just over there in one of the other string dimensions, talking to that kid. But here's the thing: a podcast is goofy. It's a little bit different. Oh, there was a new thing I did want to mention. This might not be the first time you're hearing this, but this is the first time I'm recording it. If you don't like the podcast, like you listen, most people, almost every person that's reviewed it said, give it 2 or 3 tries. So if I could ask if you're going to try to fall asleep, give it 2 or 3 tries. But if you have, or you're just having a gut reaction, you say, I don't know, I still want to help you sleep. So I have a new link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. You could go there, and I'll have some resources there, because I always say email me, but that's kind of a lot of work. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. And you could check that out, and then I'll have some other options for you to fall asleep, or stuff I've tried. And, so I appreciate you coming by and giving the show a shot. If you're a regular listener, thanks for coming back. Good to see you. How about that kid? Sometimes I hope that's what you're listening, like you're hanging in the kitchen, banging a silent pot with a gummy bear. That's what I really wish for you. And then during the day, you could be flourishing, because I truly do believe you do deserve a good night's sleep. I'm honored to be of service and to help if I can, because that's the kind of life I want for you, one where you're rested, you're doing well, or doing, where you can actually say to yourself, we're doing the best we can here. Good job. And you're treating yourself and others, and you're treated with dignity and respect. So dream a little dream. But that's what I'd really like. So that's why I work hard on the show. I strive and I yearn to help you fall asleep. And thank you again for coming by. Here's a couple ways we keep the show going. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots with a tuck you in message here for our bedtime story podcast. We're trying out, and I kind of said this, free way to support Sleep With Me and bedtime stories from Sleep With Me is join our referral program, sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer, REFER. You get rewarded for introducing people to the free version of Sleep With Me, including access to Sleep With Me Plus. But most of all, just think about what your favorite podcast is, or one of your favorite podcasts, and then support that podcast. It doesn't have to be Sleep With Me, but just to support your favorite podcast, because they could use your support right now. And if you decide, Sleep With Me is actually my favorite podcast, well, wow, blushing, seriously, even though it's imaginary here in this context, and support it at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus, or listen to a show you love and see how they want to be supported. Thanks.